computer. Okay, so we are now recording. So,
All right.
hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for joining me today to go over how students can find articles for the IDP project. Jessica, just to introduce you, you are the Communication Studies and News Librarian at the University of Washington, and you have so graciously taken time out of your Saturday to meet with me and go over some strategies so that students can more quickly find articles for this project. Thank you for
Yes.
me.
Yes. Thanks for asking me. And hopefully things remain quiet here and we don't get interrupted. We'll see.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So should we just start?
Yeah,
Kick it
go
right
for it.
off? Okay. All right. I'm
Reader.
going to attempt to share my screen and share the correct window. So do you see that? Do you see
I
the
do.
UW Libraries website? Okay. All right. So this is the UW Libraries website, and I know it's not new to you, and hopefully it's not new to a lot of your students. We've got all sorts of information here that I'll just take a quick minute to point out the gold bar across the top, as well as the big box here that says library status. So if anybody's still living within the Seattle area or around Bothell or Tacoma campuses, you still have access to print materials that are in the library, so they can be requested and picked up at curbside. And we'll get into some of the other services that we still have available. Everybody should know that all library staff are still working. We're all working from home with a really small group of people working in the library. I get to go in once a month, woohoo, for a few hours and do some things with the collection. So we're being really safe and have limited access, but lots of us are available and working from home. So just so all the students know, you can contact me for help with this class or any other comm class you're taking. You can also use our Ask Us service and chat live with a librarian 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that service is there. And if the librarian will help you get started, and if they feel like you need more information, they'll ask you if they can share your chat with me, and then I could follow up the next time I'm online. So you might end up getting my help anyway. We'll just see. So there's lots of ways to get help. But in terms of this class, jumping right in, I seem to be making it smaller. Okay, this website has lots of different, let me try it this way. Scroll down with my sidebar here. Lots of different resources available and services available through the UW libraries. And the search box that just calls out to a lot of people right here is your gateway to finding out what the UW libraries owns, whether it's a newspaper or a DVD or a streaming video or a journal article, which is what you all need, or the students need. They need 3 articles from a communication journal. So there are 3 strategies I think that the students could try to work on this, and we'll go through those 3. And the first one is just pick a journal off the list of approved journals, which are in the list on the Canvas site for the course, and just put in the title of that journal. All right, and if I click in there, okay, my
Good.
that's working. Okay,
Yep.
and my keyboard is really loud. I was trying to use my laptop keyboard, but I'll use my really loud keyboard. Okay. So first strategy could be to pick a journal title that sounds good to you off the list, and then just type in the title of the journal and click search.
Perfect.
And then right now we're searching again of what the UW Libraries has to offer. This red banner up here is only here for today because it's getting maintenance tonight. So don't expect to see that again, depending on when you do your searches for this class in the future. But what you want to pay attention to is this purple bar that's up here. And this is how you know you're in the UW Libraries database of all of our holdings, is when you see this purple bar. So here's my list of search results. Lots of different results have the words human communication research. And usually the item that you're looking for is in the top 3 to 4 results. We're seeing 2 right now because the libraries has some older editions available in print when we used to receive this in print. So that's why we're seeing this one. And then we're also seeing this record for just online access. They will both show you the same thing. So, but I don't think we need to worry about the print. So I'm going to click on result number 2. And so here we are. And this shows you lots of different things about this particular journal. So it shows you that we have access to it in 4 different ways. And what's really important to keep track of is which one of the ways has the dates that you might need. So in this first example, Oxford University Press journals, that's the publisher of this particular journal. And it's available to us through Oxford from 1996 up through the present issues. So this would give you the most current issues if you use this one. This one here, Wiley, it says available from 1996 until 2017. So this wouldn't be the best one to use because coverage, Wiley doesn't have coverage of this journal anymore.
Wow.
And then this bottom one here, this is EBSCO communication source, and we're gonna talk about databases like this in a little bit.
Okay.
This shows you it's available from 2006, but this is really important to keep in mind. The full text or the PDFs of the most recent 1 year are not available. So what that means is Oxford has decided they want us to subscribe to their actual journal.
Let's see.
And so they don't allow the databases that could have lots of journals inside of them to have the most recent coverage because they still want us to pay them, the publisher, to subscribe to their things.
All right. Good to know.
Yeah. Okay. So that's why there are multiple ones. And this one down here, this is kind of to emergency COVID access to really old, much older issues that I don't think anybody will need.
Okay.
So I'm going to log in here with my UW NetID and password, and it may remember it, but students might be asked to enter their UW NetID and password there, and then you'll be returned to this same screen, and then we'll just click on the journal title.
So sometimes I have students have reached out and said that it's asked them to pay for, and is that they just need to be sure that they are logged in to their UW EDU?
That's correct. Yes, that's why it's important to start with the UW Libraries database and go in through the library's homepage and search for it there, because then you're part of the library environment, and then you'll enter your UW NetID and password, and then it'll recognize that there are students. Yes, definitely. So now, because we went through UW Library Search, Oxford knows we're affiliated with UW, and we can see lots of information about the journal. We can go in and just look at the latest issue and see what articles it's published recently in its issue. I call that browsing. You can go in by date and just see what's there. Or you can also use the search box here and just put in a search that describes your topic. And what might be one do you think we could try that students might cover?
One that they could cover, we've got a few different concepts, but maybe let's try emotional support.
Okay. So I'm just going to put that in there, emotional support, and hit enter or click the little search box, and it says it's waiting. Sometimes it's a little slow because it's trying to remember that we're part of UW systems. So here, emotional support, there are 617 results within the journal Human Communication Research that has those two words there.
Okay.
So then once you're here, this little icon, that little lock icon that's open, that's what shows you it's available to you because the library subscribes to it. So then you can just click on the title if this one looks good to you, and you can see the article this way, or you can just click to see the PDF version, which usually looks more like what it would look like if you were holding the journal in your hand. And then you can save that to your computer and move on from there. They also give you all the information you need here to cite the article. So for your reference list or your bibliography, this is the kind of information you want to be sure to capture. And many library databases give you this option where you can click the cite link and select a format. So in this case, it wants to put in a citation manager. So if students aren't comfortable doing that, they can just click on the cite option and then copy and paste this.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind, it might not be in the style that the professor and you want them to use. So they might have to do some adjusting.
We're very strict about APA 7.
Okay, yes.
So, but the good thing about this and what I do is I take this and I drop it into a Word doc and then I doctor it up. And so I match it to whatever the professor is asking.
Exactly.
Yeah, ensuring that it's an APA 7, but this gives you all the ingredients for it. So that's great. That's a time saver.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to describe it because it's frustrating to try to find it again later if you need to cite it. Yeah,
Worse.
Yes, exactly. So we just put in those two words. We could add in additional words if we wanted to narrow it down and not have to browse through 600 plus results. Nobody would want to do that. So you can keep adding words in. And there are also some different options here where you can narrow your search down a bit. We call these filters. And so you can go over here and say, well, I only want to see the most recent 2 years, for example, and you might say 2015 through 2020, and then you can update it that way. And so really your options for narrowing the search down are to add more search terms and then use the date restrictor.
Okay. So if you add more search terms, you don't mean you're adding them in a different box. You mean that you add them on top of emotional support. So maybe like
Yes,
emotional support communication
exactly.
or,
So
okay.
we could put in communication and we could do that, or we could put in parents or
Mm,
family, those kind of words too, and see. This one still gave the same number of results because I believe it's also searching the citations, and because the word communication is in the name of the journal, we're still getting all those same results. So that's why that happened, because it's the journal Human Communication Research. So let's see if we put in family
yeah,
here,
I like
just
that.
to test and see if it works. We do update. We'll see if it's going to take us down. Yeah, so that cut it almost in half to 340 results now.
Neat. Ooh, person-centered. We do talk about person-centered communication, person-centered emotional support, and gender attributions in computer-mediated communication. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, great.
Okay. Um, yeah. So do you think this works for this one? This is
Hmm.
helpful?
Yeah,
Okay.
I absolutely think that this is a great way for them to go.
Okay. Perfect. Different journals have different publishers. And so, International Communication Association, I know on the journal list, they're chunked out by publisher for those two associations, this being one of them. They're all going to be in Oxford, but the other journals that were by, I think it was the National Communication Association, NCA, they have a different publisher. So the
Oh,
screen will look slightly differently, but they all function very similarly. Just look for the search box and just make sure that it shows you that you're searching that specific journal,
cool.
not all of the journals. So, for some projects it might be helpful. I want to search all ICA journals. Actually, it might be helpful for this one
Yeah,
because you could search all of and they're all on the professor's list, so they could all be searched here. You just probably would want to avoid searching all Oxford academic journals because there's many that are not communication focused.
do you think the all ICA journals, the International Communication Association journals, would be a way of, so it's like massing together a bunch of different journals and searching? So this might be super helpful as well. That's
Yeah,
great.
it's going to mass together. Let's see, I think there were quite a few on the list. Communication Theory, Journal of Communication, Journal of Computer Mediated Communication. I went through last night and looked at the list of journals to check to make sure which ones we had and which ones we don't through the library. And we have all of the ICA journals through
Okay,
Oxford that are on the list. So this would search all of those that are on that list. So
fabulous. Okay,
this would be cool, actually, now that I think about it, to do it this way as well.
that's great. And they
Yeah.
can just, when they search it, it should be a communication journal because communication association, but they can always just check the journal with the list of whatever the article it is that they find and like.
Yes, for sure. And that's what I was doing because I had my list open in another window, and I was just, if I saw an article that looked interesting, I was like, make sure this one's on the list, and it was. And then I knew it could be used for the assignment. So we went from 600 and some odd results with the one journal to now, when we're searching all ICA journals, 1,472. So that it gives you more, which may be helpful, but if you get overwhelmed by too many results, then maybe just choosing one of those journals to search is a better idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Okay. All right. So that was human communication research and the strategy of just picking a journal and seeing if the library has it. So just to recap, you do a search for the journal title, and then you choose if the publisher is listed there. Usually you'd want to search that one. And then we'll show how you can also search the database as well.
That's
Okay.
great.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to go back to the library's homepage, and the second strategy is to use a library database, and it can be hard to identify which library database might be best for your topic. So one way to do that is just like we just did with UW Library Search, and it listed communication source. We can go in that and do a search in that particular journal. Another way is to go and use the research guides.
Okay.
And there's a research guide for just about every discipline researched and taught on campus. And so they're all here in these broad categories. And there's one for communication.
That's great.
So we can go into communication, and then we have quite a few guides that overlap with communication studies, but we'll want to go directly into the one for specific research. And these kind of just serve as a starting point to get to find out what the libraries has in a particular discipline. So it shows y'all that you have two librarians, me and Madeline, that you can either get help with over email or schedule an appointment to meet with us like we're doing right now. And those are happening over Zoom right now. And we're pretty flexible about the timing for that too, because we know some students have jobs and are in other countries. So if you don't see a time that works for you, students, just email me and we'll arrange a time that works. Okay, so in terms of this particular assignment for this class, we'll want to go to the articles tab over here. And this is going to be the different resources the libraries has for finding scholarly journal articles. And you can see there's a lot of databases listed here. And so sometimes it's worth taking a minute just to read the little description to find out which one will work best. And there are two that I think would be helpful for this assignment for this class. The first one is communication source. And then the second one is Web of Science. And so we'll go into communication source first. And communication source is from the company EBSCO. We pay EBSCO for a lot of different databases. They have coverage of almost every journal. I think there were 2 journals on the list that are not in communication source. One thing to keep in mind is it has way more than what's on your list because it is a multidisciplinary database. So we're going to see some social psychology databases or art journals, some education journals. So this would require some double checking with the list to make sure you're getting what is on the list and approved for the class. So do you have another concept we can try for this one?
Try perspective taking, if you don't mind.
P-E-R-S-P, if I can spell it. Okay, like that, perspective taking?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Another trick in library databases that you can try to use, and this works in Google and Bing too, is if you put quotation marks around phrases that have more than one word, it tells the database that you want results that have perspective taking right next to each other in that order. So it doesn't find an article with like perspective in the first paragraph and taking later on. So that's one search trick that might be helpful if you have multi-word concepts, is putting quotes around them. And I'll just click search. And this found 1,853 things. So it found a lot of things. The first one, as an example, is in a journal called Language and Cognition. And that is not a purely comm journal. So this would not work for the assignment. Right. So a couple options for what students could do is you could just keep looking to see an article that looks interesting to you and hope you get to one. And so far we haven't yet that's on the list.
This one.
Is this one on the list?
On personal relationships.
Oh, good.
I
Good.
think it is. I believe that's a journal that we have. If not, we have one on just personal relationships, but I should check.
So what I've been doing is doing, like I'll do a control find on the list. And so I'll do that really quick, Journal of Social, and see if that comes up. And so I do recommend that the students have their journal list open. Oh yeah, it is. Good memory. Okay, you got it. Journal of Social and Personal Relationships is there. So this would be one that would work.
Ooh, and it's communicated perspective taking and story listening, testing the impact of CPT in the context of friends telling stories of difficulty. That sounds good.
That does sound good. So I'm going to click on it, and we're going to see much of the same things that we saw here. And this is something I keep complaining about because this right here is not showing what it's supposed to look like.
Because that's
And
supposed to be the PDF, right? Where we can click to download the PDF.
it's supposed to tell you what access we have here. And so, for example, this one right up above, this is not one they could use for the assignment, but it's an example of how you see that in this database, you can get the HTML full text and the PDF full text.
Okay.
When you see this broken link that or image that's not working right now, what that usually says, what it should say is check for UW holdings, because this means that this is one of those journals where the publisher does not allow EBSCO to provide the most recent year to us. So I'm going to click on this right now. This is a perfect example because this is published in January 2021. This is hot off the press, right?
Right.
Brand new, fresh issue. And because the publisher of this journal, which is, let's see, Sage wants us to pay them the money directly to buy this journal, not have all the money go to EBSCO.
The drama.
The
drama
drama
is
of
real.
libraries. I know. It's a whole proprietary world out there of money making in scholarly publishing. So this is where anybody in the world can subscribe to Communication Source, and we're one of those people. We search Communication Source to identify what looks like a really great article, but because Communication Source doesn't have the PDF, I click that little broken link, and now it took us back to UW Library Search. So we're seeing that purple bar again, and now we know we're back in the library's holdings, and now we see, okay, Sage has it. I'm going to go into Sage, and I'm going to click on that, and then we'll be in the Sage Journal website. And then here's the article. Here's, see, it looks slightly differently, but there's that little padlock that's open that tells us that UW subscribes to it in this way. And then you can download the PDF if this option is here. So I think the important thing to remember is that if one library database doesn't have the article that's really relevant and you want to use for your research, don't give up. Just click that link to then be taken back to the UW Library Search to see if we have it from a different provider. Okay, all right, good. All right, so back on this list, and I'm going to complain again as for why this isn't working, but if you see this little thing, don't be afraid, click on it. It'll take you back to the UW libraries.
That's really great to know. I didn't know about that either.
Yeah, it's supposed to be showing, I'm not sure why. And like I said, this is going to happen with some of these that are more recent, is that it has what we're calling an embargo. They basically embargoed, the publisher has embargoed the content for a certain period of time from being in a database like this. Once the embargo is over, usually it's a year or a year and 6 months, then you'll start seeing PDF links for those articles.
Interesting.
Okay. All right. So this is a kind of a neat way to search across all of the journals on the list. But again, you have to have some familiarity with the list to be able to know which ones you can use and which ones you can't.
Yeah.
And you can add other words up here. You know, you could add, maybe I'll do this one just so people can see another search trick. This is, let's say you want perspective taking among friends, but you're not really sure if an article might talk about friendship or friends or being a good friend, the singular version of that word. So when you put in that asterisk symbol, which is on the 8 key on your keyboard, if you put in the asterisk, it tells the database to search for this root word friend and any other possible ending to that word in the English language. So we're going to be searching for all those variations of the word friend when we do this search with perspective taking. And we found 898 things. So you can look through here like we were doing before. You can also see, okay, there are some other types of information here. So we only want academic journals, so we can narrow it down a little bit by clicking 732. And then you can also narrow down by date like we were doing before. And oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I generally encourage students to try and find. I mean, this is tough. You're trying to find 3 different journal articles, but professors have always told me 1990 or above, like
Okay.
or more recent. And it's not a strict thing, but just to kind of encourage students to try and get more recent if they can.
For sure. I agree. And my cutoff has been around 2010 for recently, depending on what
That's great.
topic I'm doing. If I'm doing like the history of mass communication, clearly I would want before that. But especially if you're doing social media or, you know, communication and interpersonal relationships built online, you'd want more recent things because technology has changed so fast. So
Right.
yeah, we could change that date there. For example, and then it will update our search results. And that took us down to 281. So a lot of what we were seeing was published before 2015.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a good tip to know, is that is definitely after 1990, more recent than 1990. And then depending on your topic, maybe even more recent than that. Um, the other thing I'll point out are these subject terms here. These are taken from these subjects, or you could think of them as tags that are used to describe the articles. And so every article has a list of subjects that are used to really identify what the article is really, really about. And so in this case, for example, there are 23 where it's purely about communication, or there's 15 where
Yeah,
interpersonal.
that could be
um,
great. The interpersonal could really narrow it down to some that are very related to the course.
exactly, because it's only going to search for those words that are here. And you can see, yes,
Oh,
it,
that's
it took us
great.
down to a much more specific search. And if we want to take that out, see that it's building our search here as we go on the left-hand side of the screen. So if we decided we didn't want to do communication, we want to try interpersonal
Hmm.
instead, like you were saying, we just click on that little X to take that away, and then we can go to interpersonal relations and see that here.
Wonderful.
Okay. And
Cool.
then the other thing, depending on if you want, I don't think it's a qualification for this or a requirement for this assignment, but if there's a particular type of research you're looking for, like say you want to see things where they've done interviews or where they've done a survey or focus groups, you can put in the type um, of, of study that may have been done and narrow it down that way too by study type.
That's cool. That's good to
Yeah.
know.
Okay, cool. So this is communication source. It has tons and tons of resources in it. I mean, I don't know, I should have looked up the exact number, but over hundreds and hundreds of journal articles. It has a really big scope. It's not as big as Google, but it has a really big scope. And I wanted to contrast that with the Web of Science database. And Web of Science works differently, where their goal is to only include what they identify as being the core journals for a discipline. So their list of communication journals may be shorter and more restrictive than the list of journals for the class.
Wow. Okay.
And so if you don't want to wade through all of the journals that you're going to find, the results that you're going to find in communication source, this might be where you want to try your search. So do you have another concept?
Yeah. Let's try empathic listening.
EMPATH. Tell me if I'm spelling wrong.
Should be that.
Okay, empathic listening. And if we want to, we can put the quotes around it again to get that exact phrase, but we don't have to. And then we just click search. And right now it's searching 1900 to 2021, but we don't have to do that. So it found 96 things. And the first one is communication teacher, which I believe is on the list. But then the second one is Journal of Education for Teaching. So in order to make sure we're seeing the communication journals, we can go down here and we can see these Web of Science categories. They're basically the disciplines that they categorize the journals of. So if we click on the communication one and refine it, it's going to show us the 11 results out of the 90 or so that are in purely comm journals. So now we've got communication reports. Some of these still might not be on the list for the class. So you still might need to double check against the list, but at least we're seeing what Web of Science defines as the core comm journals, and that narrows the scope down so you don't have 90 articles to look through. You can start with a much shorter list and then find an article that looks good, like this one, and get that article if it's in a journal that's on the class list.
That's great.
So this database is really interesting. We had UW Library Search that connects you to the full text of things. We had Communication Source that had some PDF coverage of journals, but also had some journal articles in there where you had to go back to the library to get the PDF. This database only tells you what was published. It does not give you any PDF full text. And I hate this button. Don't click on this one. I wish it weren't here. What UW students need to do is click on this one. This is the button that takes you into our holdings for the journal. This is the button we should have seen if communication sources little icon was working properly. So this is what we need. We're going to click on, let's say we wanted to see this article. We'll click on check for full text with the W symbol.
Quick question.
And yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry to interrupt
That's
you.
okay.
The last one we looked at, it looked like it was a document type of a letter. So it
Oh,
was just one page. Is that, how can they be sure that they're getting a yeah, an article?
that's a journal. Oh, that's an excellent question, because a journal has all sorts of different content in there. It might have letters to the editor of the journal. It might have, often they'll have book reviews in there. So this probably is what you're saying, but since we don't know for sure, we'll click through to see.
That's great, yeah. Because I know it's good for me to know too, because I have had just one student who had got a short article that they used, and so
Mhm.
they didn't have a lot to work with. So if this is how they, yeah, it'll
This
be
is one way to check for sure. I'm so
yeah,
glad you saw that, because I was just clicking through and didn't even notice. So the other thing I see is this was published in 1984. For some concepts that won't matter, and
sure,
some of the really important works are from older um, periods of time. But so
totally.
we'll go through here, and now we're in the library's database. We see communication source. So in this case, communication source has it starting in 1976. So our article from the 80s would work. And we're going to click through, and now it's funny that we've come full circle and we're going to be back in communication source again. And here we are, and we can see that the practice of rhetorical criticism, it's a book review is
Okay.
what I'm pretty sure what it is. So for some reason they categorized it as the other way, but one way to know for sure is to look at it. And you can tell that this is, well, it identifies itself as a book review, and students are going to want things that are actual articles. So let's find an article and we can contrast the difference. I mean, this, like you said, the reviews or the things that are not articles are going to be much shorter. They're also going to be formatted very differently. So let's actually find an article.
Yeah, this is great. So that way they know,
Yeah, what
students,
to look for.
yeah, they'll know what to look for and when they found something that they shouldn't use.
Yes. Okay, good. So let's go back to our list and see. And if you see one,
What about that
tell me.
first one?
This one here.
Free listening, identifying and evaluating listening barriers through empathic listening. That looks
Okay,
pretty good.
let's try that one. So we'll click check for full text, and it takes a minute if you had your other window still open, but here we are loading a new page in UW Library Search. Here's the article. This is another good example of a stumbling block you might run into. So good, we're hitting all of them. This particular one shows that this journal, which is Communication Teacher, we don't have 2020 for this particular journal. If we did, we'd see all those different options here. So we don't want any students' research to suffer because we can't afford to buy all the journals that exist out there. So what they can do is they can do this article request. And so you just click on this, and it's going to connect with Interlibrary Loan, which is a service in the library that what those staff will do is they'll find another library that does have it, and they'll get a PDF for the students or for you for free. And then you'll get to download that and save it to your computer. So there's no cost to you all for doing this. And if you don't have an interlibrary loan account, you'll first be taken to a little screen where you have to fill in some personal information that we don't share with anybody. It's just logistical stuff that we need to sync your ILL account up with your library account. And then the cool part about doing it this way is the database fills in all the information it needs about the article, and you just submit the request, and then the library will get it for you.
This is another great reason to start their assignment early because it's
Yes,
going to take a few days to get this. And so
yes,
starting weeks in advance will ensure that you're able to get like the perfect articles for your project.
definitely. That's exactly right. So, okay, so that's interlibrary loan. Let's go. down here a bit more, communication monographs is on the list. This is from 1984, so I'm pretty sure we're not going to reach an embargo for that. So let's try this one and see.
And it's definitely not the end of the world if they have to request, because I do
No,
that all the time. And in a matter of a couple days, I've got an email. Sometimes the day of, I have an email
yes.
with my article scanned. It's pretty phenomenal.
Exactly. It's a great service, and we all borrow and share from one another. So we're really used to doing this. So it's definitely okay. So this was the article we needed is from 1984, volume 51, issue 4. That's what we're seeing right here. And so we go down here, and sure enough, Communication Source does have it from the 1980s.
Yay!
Yes, exactly. And I skipped the Happy Trust one just because it's a little bit more cumbersome to use. And I know how to use the EBSCO databases better. So that's why I skipped the other one. And so here's the PDF link. And now we'll be able to get to this article. So here it is. Now this is from 1984. So the
Oh,
formatting might be a little different than what we'd see from
but it's,
today.
yeah,
Looks a little old school, but there's the title, there are the authors. Often you can tell it's a scholarly journal article because it has an abstract. So it has the paragraph describing the content of the article. We can go down here and see that often journals on the bottom of the first page of the article tell you who the author is and a little bit about them. So that's another clue that this is a scholarly journal article. We've also got this standard formatting down here to know it's an actual academic journal because they have volumes and issue numbers. And then the other way to see format wise for me is that often scholarly journal articles are broken into categories where they might have an introduction and then they have like the explanation of what their research is, their methodology, and they might use different words to describe it, especially from the 80s to today. But you can see here's their method section. So
right.
this is how they're going to tell us how they're doing it. And we just keep going. And like you said, the length. I mean, journal articles are usually 5 to 25 or 30 pages long. They're very long. And then they also often present their data in formats like that, in graphs and things. And then I'm trying to scroll to the bottom because usually after they present their data, then they have a conclusion and then they have their reference list. So this is another example, a book review or a letter to the editor, they're not going to cite sources for those. It's just their opinions. And so when you see a bibliography, then you know it's a research article as well.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that took us a long time to get there, but it does show don't give up because you might find something that's really great and relevant for your research. It just might take some clicking through and some trying again.
Yeah, this is the most challenging part of the assignment, I believe. So
Mhm.
students need to take some time to make these searches, and it's can be a bit of a grueling process, but it's very rewarding when you finally stumble upon one that you really like.
Exactly. I agree. And they're always welcome to make an appointment and I can do this with their research topics for what they want to do. We can work on this stuff
You're
together.
so nice.
Yes,
The
so we can do
best.
that too. Okay, so can you think of any questions related to the first two strategies we've done where we've done looking for the journal itself or using a library database, an
I
article
think
database?
so. I think
Okay,
so. So far, so good.
okay. So then the third strategy we thought we'd share is the Google Scholar, which for those folks that are just more comfortable searching in Google, this might be the way you want to go. And I search it too, and oftentimes I'll search both for the same research project. It just depends on what I'm finding and what's working well in one or not working so well. So the first thing that every student should do when they get ready to use Google Scholar is to tell Google Scholar you're all students at UW Libraries. And so how to do that is you'll want to click on these three little lines up here, and then it will open their toolbar. And we want to go to the settings. Okay,
Never
so
done this.
oh, you haven't? Oh, perfect. Okay. Oh my gosh, this might just rock your world. Let's
Oh
see.
no, 5 years in. Oh God.
All right.
All right.
And sometimes the settings fall out. And so sometimes even for me, I find I have to do it again because like if I don't know. So anyway, we're going to click on settings and then we've got all different settings we can choose. But the one that I care most about is the library links. So we want to go into this library links section, and I've selected it already. I
Okay.
should have taken it out, but for everybody else, you would put in University of, if you, let's see, I've got to spell right, of Washington,
Okay.
and then click the little blue search button. And then when you do this for you all, it's going to come up on the second page because of the order. They're listing them in alphabetical order. So you'll click through to the second page using the little toggle here. You'll select the option for University of Washington full text at UW,
Okay.
and then you'll click save. Okay. So basically this is that little purple button that we saw in Web of Science, check for full text at UW, and the one in the EBSCO database that wasn't working quite so well. Remember, it was showing us the broken image
Yeah.
option. All of these things function the same way. They're all going to function so that they'll return you to the UW Libraries database to get our subscription to a journal. So do you have a fourth concept by chance? Or should we try one we've already done?
Why don't we try um, self-disclosure?
Okay. I'm going to do the quotes again just because that's what I'm used to, but they're also so helpful in giving you different options. So we could choose to do self-disclosure in communication. And that's actually not a bad idea for Google Scholar, because remember, we've gone from searching one specific COM database to searching COM databases full of COM journals to now Google Scholar, which just has everything, you know, from all different disciplines in it. So putting in communication as a keyword now is more important. So we still found over 2 million things, but now see, we've got these full text at UWs.
Oh,
This is where if we click on this, and I'm going to do it in a new tab here, it's going to take you back to that purple bar again, where you're in the UW libraries. And then it's going to sync you up to that article through the library. And if we have it, then this one's from 1975. So in this case, we would want it through Hathi Trust. If we didn't have it, then we could request it through interlibrary loan and get a copy of that article. So it just is such a time saver to connect Google Scholar to the library's holdings for different things.
you're telling me.
Yeah, exactly. So we can do custom date ranges. Let's just do since 2017, since it's here and it's easy.
Okay.
And so we're still seeing those. And what this is basically going to do is it's going to tell the date, you know, we've already been in the libraries, we've already entered our UWNet ID. And so we would click on this and it would take us to the library's record for that particular journal, which is really great.
Okay.
Um, and then you can download it if we have it or request it if we don't. I'm just curious. Yep, here we go. And then this is Sage. Sage and Oxford and Taylor and Francis. Those are the three really big journal publishers that have a lot of communication journals. So those are the ones that students will encounter the most, probably.
Okay.
So that reminds me is that Google Scholar is going to be full of journals that aren't on the list for the class. So that makes it a little bit more cumbersome to search. And there really isn't an easy way other than putting in the word communication in the search box to restrict your search to just communication journals. So for this particular assignment, I think it'll be less frustrating if students just use communication source or Web of Science or the specific journal searching.
I think
But
you're very right. Yep.
okay. All right, but I think it's good to know this is here. And because Google Scholar will be helpful for so many other things for
I love
sure.
Google Scholar. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Okay, all right, what did we miss? Can you think of anything?
Oh, I think that's brilliant. I think this is going to help a lot.
Okay, all right. And so just then the last reminder is that my contact information is here. Madeline is also available to meet with you. And I'll just quickly show you can email us directly, or if you click on that make an appointment, you'll see when we have appointments available. So like the next one is the 19th and I've got all these times listed here. And so somebody would just click on that. They're in 30-minute intervals, but you can do 2 back to back if you don't want to be rushed and want to, you know, we could take 40. The average one lasts about 45 minutes. So you could book 2 and that would be fine too. So these are available as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this. This is
Oh,
Yeah, just
Awesome.
an incredible resource.
Great. Cool.
All right. I will.